Money FM 89.3, the best of the afternoon update. The afternoon update with Lin Li Fu.
It's right, you're with me, Lin Li, on the Afternoon Update. Welcome to Industry Insight. Now, Singapore is quickly becoming a serious force in tech, especially in software development. In fact, GitHub reported a 28% year-on-year surge in developer activity in Singapore in 2024. And now, Singapore ranks among the top 10 contributors globally to AI projects. Now, that growth coincides with the next big shift in how we write and maintain software, the rise of agentic AI, and these are the systems that go beyond assisting developers. They can act autonomously, raising new opportunities and new challenges around trust, quality, and security. So can Singapore's developer boom position it to lead the global push for secure AI-powered software? Joining me in the studio is Tariq Shaukat, CEO of Sonar, the world's leading platform for code quality and security, used by millions of developers and trusted by organizations around the world. Tariq, welcome to the show. Welcome to the studio.
Thank you so much for having me.
Now, I know you're not based in Singapore, so tell us about where you come from and a little bit about Sonar.
Well, Sonar is headquartered in Geneva, Switzerland. I'm based in Austin, Texas, and I'm here visiting our team in Singapore. We have a large presence here in Singapore that has been growing very rapidly, in part because of the availability of great talent, both on the sales side as well as on the AI product development side.
And Sonar recently opened its regional HQ here in Singapore, like you mentioned, and also acquired an autonomous AI platform developed at NUS. I'm pretty sure it has something to do with Singapore's 28% jump in developer activity last year. So let's start with this growth story. Singapore now ranks among the top 10 global contributors to AI projects, as I mentioned earlier. From where you sit, what's driving this momentum?
Well, I think there's a couple of things. First of all, the world is being transformed with AI, and I think one of the killer apps of the AI revolution has been coding. Virtually every company I talk to now is using some form of AI development tools, whether these are the vibe coding tools that we're all reading about now, or whether it is more professional tools. It really is become a big surge in adoption, really in the last 12 months, maybe 18 months. And so part one is there's just this big wave that is coming. And really, the places that are able to capitalize on it are the places that have a forward-leaning approach. They are very early adopters. They are very eager to adopt AI. And this is one of the things that very much attracted us to Singapore, is that we find a talent base here that's very AI-friendly. We find a government here that's very forward-leaning in AI. We find companies that are very much eager adopters of AI, and a talent pool in the universities that is really exceptional. And
there's also a clear demand for high-trust, secure digital services. That's and right. Developers here are suddenly stepping up to that challenge. And what about that new autonomous AI platform you've acquired, which was developed right here in Singapore at the National University of Singapore? Tell us more about it. How does that tie into Sonar's roadmap?
Well, it's a great question. And we were very impressed when we came to NUS and Professor Roy Chowdhury's lab, which is the Trustworthy and Secure Software Lab at NUS. His research team has really been leading the way globally in secure software development and really the research around AI in software development. They had built a system that they called Autocode Rover, which really had taken a lot of the software development world by storm. It had been rated number 1 or 2 in the global benchmarks for AI systems. And so this really caught our attention as we were reviewing what's happened with agentic systems. What Autocode Rover does is it basically acts autonomously, but with a human in the loop, but autonomously on your code base and understands what the issues are in your code base and helps to address and fix these issues. And so it really is taking, the way that we see it is it takes some of the toil work, some of the troublesome work, the time-consuming work that no developer really loved to do, and it is automating that, making the developer more productive, making it more trustworthy and secure. Your code base becomes healthier as a result. And the technology developed at NUS really has been world leading.
Let's dig into that a little bit more, Tariq. A lot of us are familiar with tools like Copilot that suggest snippets of code, but what exactly is agentic AI and how is it different?
Well, it really builds out, it's an evolution. And you have tools like Copilot and Cursor and other tools that have become very popular working side by side with the developer. As you say, these are almost autocomplete types of tools that you start typing and it'll help you finish your sentence in a way. What the agentic tools are doing is they operate somewhat autonomously. So they think about the workflow and how do you complete a task from beginning to end. And a lot of the challenge in doing this is doing it in a secure and trustworthy way because you are essentially trusting part of your code base to this agent. And you're trusting that the agent is going to do a good job. Of course, what we recommend and what all of our customers do is verify. We actually talk about trust but verify being a critical part of the AI world. And that is particularly true when you have these autonomous systems, but they're really completing tasks as opposed to just being assistants. Think of it as you're getting a virtual coworker as opposed to an assistant.
Okay, and it's a lot about speed, but not just that. It's also about scale and consistency as well.
It's about, yes, speed is one part of it. And what we do find, Sundar Pichai, the CEO of Alphabet, talked about how 30% of the code written at Alphabet, at Google, is written by AI. And then he followed that up by saying, but they've only seen a 10% productivity improvement. And that 10% is huge. So I'm not diminishing this point. But the gap between 30% and 10% is in many ways you have to review the code. You have to actually trust the code itself, and you have to be able to have that credibility, to feel like the software is doing a good job. And so to your point, speed is one part of the equation, but unless you can close that loop, unless you can provide the trust and the assurance, the verification, we really aren't going to see the productivity improvements that everyone wants to see.
Okay, since you're talking about that, so if an AI is making changes to your code, how do you make sure it's not introducing new risks?
And this is where, in many ways, the role of the software developer is going to change and has already started changing. If you think about 5 years ago, before AI tools really became popular and mainstream, the developer was writing all of the code. And the developers were responsible for checking the code. Well, now what's going to happen is that AI is going to write more and more of the code. In fact, at Sonar, we say we should be planning for a world in which 100% of code is touched by AI in some way, shape, or form. Then the role of the software developer is going to be to check that code, but there's going to be a high volume of code because AI can write code quickly, and it's going to become complex. And so really what you have to do is introduce verification tools, code review tools, systems and structures so that that developer, that person in the loop here, which we think is critically important, that person can actually review the code changes that are happening. This is what Sonar does, is we provide tools to enable those developers to review your code and assure that it is secure and that it is maintainable and that it doesn't have bugs as well.
Okay, so I'm just curious. AI is supposed to propose, and then human developers are supposed to do their job better, I suppose. But what should we, as humans, focus on in terms of code?
It's a great question. And this is a question everyone is really thinking through right now. If you think about the role of a software developer historically, everyone thinks that it was putting your hands on the keyboard and typing the code, but that was really only a part of it. And in many ways, it was the least important part. The most important parts were designing the code, designing the architecture, figuring out what should this actually do, figure out how do you create delightful user experiences, things like that. So that's a large part of what a software developer should do. And then on the back end, it's making sure that the code works, that it is highly performant, that it actually does the job that you want it to do. And in a way, the stuff that happened in the middle of writing the code was just a means to an end. And so what we think is going to happen is that this frees up more of the developer's time for the creative, for the user experience, for elements that I think really will help the developers both be happier, be more productive, but also really show their unique capabilities and their unique insights.
Okay, sounds great. Now, let's talk about business impact. So many companies are under pressure to release faster, new features, bug fixes, like you mentioned, updates. But quality sometimes takes a hit. So what's the biggest mistake you see companies making in trying to balance that speed and trust?
I think it is actually viewing that this is a trade-off. And I think, I always tell my team there's an analogy going back 30, 40 years ago in the manufacturing world where it used to be that we thought that building high-quality cars was a trade-off with speed. And what Toyota showed was that if you build quality into the car, into the manufacturing process, that you actually get efficiency and you get quality. And I think the same thing is true in software. What we often talk about is you need to build the software right the first time. If you are a developer, if you're AI, checking quality as you are writing the code, as you are building the software, as you're designing it, is really critical. And if you do that, we don't see a trade-off with productivity and speed. In fact, quite the opposite. Right now, there's a lot of time spent debugging software afterwards. So you spend all this time writing it, and then you realize there's problems, and then you have to debug it. And it is much harder and much more expensive to debug software later on. And so if you design it securely, if you design it with high quality, you can actually speed up the process itself.
I guess. So you're saying if you embed the quality element into the development process, instead of tacking it on at the end, you actually go faster.
That's right. Quality is a feature. It's not a bug. It's not an afterthought. It's a feature, and it does save you all the time later on that you will spend debugging and fixing.
Okay, so what does that look like in practice? How do developer-first tools change the way teams work, maybe at Sonar?
Yeah, the first part is you have to win the trust of the developer. So we have 7 million developers who use our tools. And the reason why they use the tools is because they trust the output of the tools. And just like in any other line of work, if you trust the tools, you will start to pay attention. You will start to take the suggestions seriously. And we build our tools into the experience of the developer. So it's not an afterthought. It's not a side project. It's not something that you have to do extra steps. We integrate with GitHub. We integrate with all of the development environments. We integrate with all of the other tools so that it's a part of the flow that you have, and it doesn't distract from the developer. And that's really the most important piece, is to find tools that win the developer trust and that don't disrupt the workflow, but enable it instead.
And build confidence, at the same time reduce bottlenecks, right?
Exactly.
But what about heavily regulated sectors like finance or healthcare, where trust and security are non-negotiable?
Yes, and we think that there's even more of a case in those industries to build it securely, design the product securely. We have all of the top banks in the U.S. We have all the top banks in Singapore and Asia Pacific as customers. And a large part of the reason is because in finance, in healthcare, in these highly regulated industries, you really can't make mistakes. You really can't ship the bugs. And so having the assurance, having the verification, giving the tools to developers, but then also making sure there's the compliance processes and the governance processes in place so that you can have the stamp of approval, if you will, and say this passed my quality screen is critically important. And absolutely in finance and automotive and healthcare, that stamp of approval is really important.
Bringing it back home to Singapore, Tariq, looking ahead, do you think Singapore could play a global leadership role when it comes to secure AI-powered software development?
Absolutely. I think Singapore, I've been here for a couple of days visiting my team and visiting with customers, visiting with the government and with academia here, folks at NUS. And what has really impressed me is that you have in Singapore all of the ingredients. This is why we as a company are investing in the market as well. You've got world-class academic researchers who are really focusing on this question, like the team that we are partnering with AutoCode Rover. You have companies that are very eager to adopt, and you have an environment, a society that is very much leaning into AI, even from a workforce development standpoint, from a skills standpoint. And honestly, as I travel the world, the people are asking, where are good examples? Who's doing this right? And I think Singapore is increasingly an example that we talk about as a country that is really at the leading edge of AI.
Okay, what's next in the region for Sonar?
In the region, we are continuing to hire. We're continuing to build out our team here. We have, as I mentioned, both a sales team, a go-to-market team, but also a product and engineering team here. We are continuing to build essentially our AI agents. Will be based here in Singapore, and we'll be continuing to hire PhD level talent to build out these tools.
So more investment
here in the market.
Okay, and just to wrap things up, Tariq, what's the one takeaway you'd want our listeners to leave with?
I think there's an old expression that you need to trust, then verify, and we believe this is one of the keys to the AI world. Whether you're talking about coding or whether you're talking about any other part of AI, we're all used to hearing about hallucinations, about LLMs. They're not magic. They are systems that make mistakes. And that doesn't make them less valuable, but it does mean that you can trust those systems and you need to verify. And I think that is a motto to live by in the AI world.
Tariq Shaukat, CEO of Sonar, thank you so much for giving us a front row view into how Singapore's booming developer scene, agentic AI, and the future of secure code are all converging right here in Singapore. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
You've been listening to Industry Insight on the Afternoon Update. Keep it right here on Money FM 89.3.
To listen to more great interviews, download our podcasts at audio.sg or download the audio app. That's AWEDIO, audio at the App Store and Google Play.